So I find myself quite literally in the middle of nowhere with quite a bit of time to kill. So what I thought I'd do is, what comes naturally, is build myself a little foundry in the bush. So this is by no means my design. I'll link in the description to the person who had the design first, but I thought I'd give it a go and see what I can do, see if we can have some fun with it. Okay, I had to work quite quick there because the plaster set really quickly. So what I've done is I've put plaster in to a steel bucket and then put a plastic bucket in the center to create a hole. It's looking like it's pretty dry now, so what I'll do is I'll tip the water out and pull out the bucket and see what we've got there. Over here we've got the lid. There's a cricket or a locust in there as well. So I put some hooks in there so I can lift it out, and also put just a hole in the center. It might not be big enough, but we'll see how it goes. If it needs to be drilled out a little bit further later on, then I'll do that. Okay, so I'll take these up, clean it up and see what we got. Tell you what, getting that bucket out was a lot more difficult than I thought, but it's finally come out now into a million pieces, so I just got to clean up this. And then we'll put a hole in it, and we'll also take out the lid and see how that goes. I've got to smooth out the top as well. And we should be almost ready to go. So the lid came out so much easier, probably because it was a bit of a flexible bucket, so that's really good. Looks like it turned out really well. The hole's a little bit out of center, but that's okay, it's a bush job anyway, so it doesn't really affect the functionality of it, so it should be good. So the next thing is to drill a hole for the blower into the side of the bucket, so that's what we'll do next. There we go, it looks like it fits my pipe perfectly and at a nice angle so the slag doesn't come out of the hole accidentally, doesn't fill up. Alright, so next thing is just to connect this to the PVC piping, and then later on I'll connect the hairdryer to the PVC pipe. The last piece of the puzzle is making my crucible, and I'll be making that out of this fire extinguisher. It's empty fire extinguisher. So I'll be chopping that up and seeing how it fits. So here's my final product. So this is the bush foundry. So the PVC pipe will, where is it? There. So PVC pipe will connect at the end to a hairdryer, which will blow into the hole down here. And then we've got the lid on the top here, which can be taken off with, I designed it with hooks so we can just get a rod in there and just lift it up with a rod. Okay. And then in here we've got, enough room for quite a bit of coal, and then our crucible, and maybe when I get home I'll clean up the edges. Probably not easy to do out here. I made a bit more of a mess than I thought I would, but looks like it came out well, so tomorrow I'll fire it up and see what we can do with it. So the foundry has come back into civilization now and ready to be fired up for the first time, and I've got everything here that I need to do that. So here's the lid. I've got the two hooks and I've got a pole here which can go over and I can lift it up with this, no problems. Got my tongs. There's the actual furnace itself, the foundry itself with the crucible in there, and the briquettes, the pipe and the hairdryer, some matches, some duct tape, butane torch, and some things that we can just try out melting down, so some glass and some aluminium cans, and some water just to pour it into. So let's fire it up and see how it goes. We have success. I think it's burning quite hot in there now. Let's chuck a few things in there and see how we go. So we managed to get some pure aluminium, or aluminum for you Americans. Quite a bit of it stuck to the bottom of the bucket. It must have been really hot when it got down there, so that might need a bit of cleaning off, but so far a successful first melt. There's a lot of unmelted material in here. Now I know that the impurities will form a slag, but this looks like there's a lot more aluminium still in there that didn't melt down. So next time I'll probably need to mix it around a bit, or maybe leave it in a little bit longer to make sure I get all the aluminium out. It looks like there might be also a bit of an uneven melt. So I thought I'd try glass next, and this was left over from our New Year's celebration, and there's a little bit of extra material left in the bottom of the bottle, so let's see how that goes. In this clip you get a really good look about what's happening within the foundry itself. The crucible is heating up and parts of it are glowing red, but only the very bottom and only the bits that are touching the coal are heating up, so it reinforces the idea that we're actually getting uneven heating. So after running it for a fair bit and trying to get it as hot as I can, my hairdryer packed up and decided not to work again. So I had to make do with the temperature that I had. So clearly the glass has not melted, and given that glass has a melting temperature of between 1400 and 1600 degrees Celsius, that's not entirely unexpected. A big chunk of the glass is also fused to the bottom of the crucible, and it took quite a bit of messing around to get it out. Having a look at the pieces in a little bit more detail, it shows that we were able to heat the glass up to the point where it's at its transformational temperature. The parts of the bottom that were touching the crucible, the red hot crucible, probably got over 1000 degrees Celsius, and we're able to fuse together, but it wasn't quite hot enough to melt it. So overall, for the first run, the foundry worked really well, and I've learned a lot. So for starters, I'm going to need a lot hotter and a lot more even fire. So next time I'll use a lot more fuel and a lot more air. So the hairdryer I had was clearly not up to the job. It packed up pretty quickly. But I do have a leaf blower that I might give a go, but I suspect that that's probably going to get hot enough to melt my crucible. The plan now is to make those changes and get a super hot fire and see what I can melt. That will probably mean that I'm going to need a proper crucible, because this one's probably going to melt, but should be fun doing that. If you want to see what I managed to melt in this baby, then feel free to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. You can also make some recommendations in the comments and I'll see what I can do.